Drawing from imagination is always something that I always thought was really cool, and it was a skill that I was really struggling to learn because there was like no resources on it, and I kind of just had to piece together everything and try to find what the requirements for me to be able to draw from imagination and be able to not use reference. Here, I just wanted to create a whole series of videos, extension tutorials to go with those videos to help people or help guide people to be able to learn how to draw from imagination. Because again, there's just like no videos that I could find when I was trying to learn that really explicitly explained like how all these concepts turned into imagination drawings. So yeah, perspective. Perspective is essential to drawing from imagination because it's what allows us to think in 3 dimensions rather than 2, which is what a lot of beginners are stuck with. A lot of people tend to skip it or like graze over it. It is misunderstood in its implications to practical drawing, because all you see are these 1 point, 2 point, 3 point perspective tutorials, and it's like, how do I make that practical? It's not, because like not every time are you just gonna plot out the horizon line and all that. It's just really annoying. In my opinion, being able to draw a basic box from imagination is the first stepping stone into drawing more complex forms, because essentially this is what everything can be broken up into. Just the humble box is just like very, very important for you to understand, because if you can't draw that from imagination, there's no way you're going to be able to draw anything else from imagination. Here I'm demonstrating a drawing of a basic cube in a lot of different angles, and being able to do this easily without reference is a requirement in order to draw from imagination. I personally recommend Scott Robertson's How to Draw for like super in-depth breakdown of perspective, but don't get too caught up into it because it's really, at least for a beginner, because it's really technical and very unintuitive at times. So I do think there are some other options, but this is what I generally use to learn perspective. For drawing a cube, the gist is that as you turn something horizontally, you'll see more of that side, and its vanishing points will move more to the left or right depending on which way you turn it. When the object is moved above or below the horizon line, the more you will see the bottom, and when an object is moved below the horizon line, the more you will see the top of it. When that happens, it will require a third vanishing point. It's important to remember when you're just doing these little boxes from your imagination, the goal isn't perfection. The goal is for you to be able to draw something from your imagination in perspective that is good enough to communicate the angle that is desired. So be sure when you're drawing these boxes, you have an angle in mind and you nail that down from your imagination. Ellipses are essential, just like the cube, for being able to construct things out of your imagination. The basic rundown is that ellipses can be constructed with a single plane that's broken up with a cross, with the tangents being the apexes of the ellipses. This is really important because this will allow you to determine something just a little more organic, the direction in which it's facing. A cylinder, which is the next demo I will be showing you. Cylinders. So with your applied knowledge of ellipses, you can draw cylinders. Just like cubes, being able to do this with little construction will allow you to apply these practically. The key thing to remember are that parallel lines are never quote unquote parallel unless they are facing directly at the viewer, but almost always are they moving towards a common vanishing point. Again, what's important, I can't stress this enough, is that you will be able to construct these basic forms from imagination without construction. So all freehand. They don't need to be perfect, again, but just be okay with good enough. First people that come to mind when saying that are people like Kim Jong-gi, amazing artists like Peter Han. He's also like an extreme example of that. Karl Kopinski, The first thing that comes to mind when I say this to you is probably like, how do I apply these concepts into what I want to draw myself, right? To be able to apply our intuitive perspective, we must be able to break down what we want to draw into something more comprehensible. This can be only achieved through referenced study. The drawing you're seeing right now of a Jeep that I found on Pinterest, here I'm breaking it down into what's its most simple form. There's no right answer here. Whatever forms you're most comfortable with is what you should be using. From here, we can use what we have learned and be able to turn the forms into which way we want from our ability to draw these basic forms. So boxes and cylinders. And from that just comes a lot of practice. I'm guessing the majority of people watching this video are mostly wanting to draw how to draw people. The process is the same. You must be able to break down the parts into comprehensible, digestible parts. There's a specific way in which I go about breaking down the human form. And if you want, you can comment below if you want to see that happen. To sum it together, I break down both the ribcage and pelvis into both rectangular prisms. This is treated just like a cube, just with elongated sides. And the limbs are cylinders, and their basic joints are just basic spheres, which are basically just circles. They don't really they're not really affected by perspective. They just get bigger and smaller as they get closer or further away. Right now, they are pretty generic. This is due to its lack of like anatomy, obviously. You don't necessarily need like extreme George Bridgman, Andrew Loomis, a knowledge of anatomy, but you need enough to be able to communicate the basic form that everyone knows a human to have. To conclude everything, what you need to be able to do, or at least the first stepping stone to be able to draw from your imagination, is that you need to be able to draw primitive forms like cubes, cylinders, and some other things that I didn't even mention in the video, like pyramids, cones, and be able to manipulate them in your head and get it down onto paper. Because with this, you'll be able to break down more complex shapes into these small digestible constructions and be able to manipulate them at your will. For future videos, I will be going over like other things that are really important to create a whole picture, not just like drawings from your imagination, kind of like what you're kind of seeing on screen right now. These are all done from imagination without much reference. Maybe for that dragon, I did have to use like what does a dragon look like, but you know, it's all cool. Majority of the other things are just from being able to break things down and being able to manipulate things and knowing how lighting works and all that. Now we'll be going over that in future videos, and I never know how to end these off. So